Welcome back to the Pulse. Now, he had a bid for a contract and hoping to win it. So when he was asked to submit his bank checkbooks, he gladly did in the hope that was the window to his bid success. But that's just the beginning of his feud with his Bongo District Assembly, accusing them of allegedly withdrawing monies amounting to 180,000 Ghana cedis from his private business account without the consent of the account holder. The assembly is said to have first deposited the money in the account under the pretext of awarding a contract to the company, then went to withdraw it later. The full story is captured in this special investigative work by Manasseh Azore Awene.
When the CEO of Apogan KA Enterprise, Asumbekere Karim Anabla, got a notification that 31,000 cedis had been withdrawn in cash from his bank account, he was alarmed. But what alarmed him more was the name that came with the alert: David Aruk. David Aruk is the engineer and head of works department at the Bongo District Assembly, and Karim said he had not permitted him to withdraw any money from his account. Roxanne Akugre is the lawyer Karim contacted to officially seek answers from the bank and the district assembly.
We got instructions from our client in the nature of an award, a purportedly awarded contract to him. He's not aware that that contract has been awarded to him. He only got to know about it, or what prompted him to make enquiries was a text message he received on his phone indicating that some amount of money had been withdrawn from his account, business account with Maltaba Rural Bank in Bongo. So that alerted him to make enquiries, and he got to know that a contract was purportedly awarded to him to drill, construct, test, and do hand pump installation in some location unknown to him. And the district chief executive, Peter Ayimbesa, was the person who signed the letter awarding the contract to him. And the money was paid into the account without his knowledge, and it was withdrawn without his knowledge.
Went to the Bongo Community Bank, Maltaba, and asked the manager. The manager told me that there was some contracts awarded to my company at Bongo Assembly. So they paid the money, and then they came and wrote the money. The Bongo coordinating director called me, Samuel Akanyanga, and pleaded with me that it was a mistake that they have used my documents. Then I told him that when you are using my documents, did you tell me anything? That's no.
On June 14, 2021, an amount of 156,000 cedis entered and disappeared from Karim's account at the Maltaba Community Bank in Bongo under murkier circumstances than the first withdrawal from the same bank. This time, Karim did not get a notification. He suspected the bank had intentionally deactivated the alert to him.
The first one, I got the transaction on my phone, but the second one, they disconnect me on the transaction. So I went and complained to them, and they told me there's a problem, and then my number have deleted to their system. So I should give them the number to connect me again. So I gave them the number 26th June. So they connect me on the transaction 26th June again.
The chairman and two members of the board of the bank told me a technical problem resulted in the deactivation of notification to Karim. When Karim requested a statement of accounts from the bank, it did not indicate who withdrew the money. The narration that went with the withdrawal of the 156,000 was miscellaneous debits. The DC of Bongo, Peter Ayimbesa Ayamga, said the assembly could not have gone to withdraw any money from the contractor's account.
So I was surprised that they said that assembly went back and made same withdrawal. As I said, I'm not aware that assembly went back to make withdrawal. Assembly cannot go to make withdrawal because the project does not belong to assembly. The monies were paid in the names of the company. So how could the assembly, that is not the company, go back to the bank to make withdrawals? In any case, assembly doesn't issue checks like previously. We pay through the GHS platform. So when we pay, it goes to Bank of Ghana, and they do the transfer of same money to the contractor's bank, and it went to the bank. So how could we go back into the GHS platform and make withdrawals of same? In the first place, we are not the contractors.
Despite this assertion, his head of works, David Aruk, admitted he withdrew the first amount, but claimed he did not know what he was doing.
In fact, I don't even know how to start. I was called at the bank that we have good working relationship, this and that I should come. When I got there, Baba was sitting with the bank manager, and the manager wanted to find out whether we have given a job to Baba. And I said yes. They say actually he was looking for some facility or something. He wanted to be sure. But that we have paid mobilization to him. And I said yes. They said, okay, can I endorse for him? So something like this banking system, I'm not used to those things. So if I know BA very well, and I know manager. So if they say I should endorse for him, I didn't see anything wrong with that. And that is how I endorsed this thing there. Then BA, the money was given to BA, and he went and started his work.
If you say endorse, what kind of endorsement? Because you are not a party to the account. So if you are to endorse for money to be removed,
they brought a pink, was it a pink form like that?
Was it a withdrawal form?
I should think so. Because he said I should endorse, and I didn't have interest. The money was not mine and all those things. So honestly, I didn't take time to read what was there.
My investigation to establish who withdrew the 156,000 started at the Maltaba Community Bank in Bongo. The bank manager, Felix Akora, said he had been instructed by the board of directors not to speak on the matter. I then called and met the board chairman of the bank in Bolgatanga. Dr. Francis Atentono came with two other board members to that meeting. The board chairman said the information he had was that the 156,000 cedis was withdrawn by Karim's friend, Asar, and given to the assembly. Asar denied the claim by the board chairman of the bank.
I would be surprised that I hear my name and this issue that I pick money from bank. I didn't know anything about picking money from Bongo Bank.
In my interview with the DCE, he said his checks had revealed that Karim had signed the check and given it to Baba to countersign and withdraw the money.
A sample of the withdrawal from the bank, and none of my officers was a signatory to that check that was withdrawn. A check was written by Karim to the Baba. I saw that behind the check, the endorsement is that of the contractor, Baba. He countersigned and made a withdrawal. And I realized that Karim also had signed, the check was written by himself, he had signed the check and given it to them to withdraw. And mind you, because the certificate originally belonged to that person, of course, the one who used it needed his permission or consent before he's able to make withdrawal. Perhaps it is on the basis of that Baba got Karim to issue a check for him, because the check was not issued under duress. It was not issued under any merchant orders. It is Karim himself who willingly issued the check to Baba, and Baba went and withdrew the cash. That is what I have here as information from the bank. When
I met Baba, however, he said he went to the bank with a check, but it was given to him by an official of the assembly and not Karim, as the DCE said.
It was Asar who endorsed, but I didn't know whether the money was in Asar account, but he endorsed the check and everything.
Yes. So if you didn't know the owner of the, so who gave you the check? Who handed the check over to you?
It is the DFO who handed the check to me.
So how did Karim's check get to the assembly? He said after the assembly withdrew the 31,000 cedis and he confronted them, they admitted that he had used his business to award a contract and that he should cooperate with them so that they would be able to withdraw the money and complete the project. As a sign of good faith, he said the assembly officials asked him to deposit a blank check with the assembly, which he did with his signature and name on it.
And I told him that what we do is that you have to send me to the site where you have did the work, and then you provide me a receipt. I don't want problem tomorrow. And then he was accepted that they will send me to the site. And then that day that they gave me a award letter for that job, then I give him an open check that he should hold the check. He cannot withdraw money more than 5,000 in my accounts. So if you hold the check and send me to the site that they have did the work, and then I'm certified for the work, I will come and draw the money. But if they didn't do the work, I won't draw the money to them.
Karim named the assembly officials who were at the meeting when he presented the check.
I've given the check to, there was 5 people. Bongo coordinating director, the DFO, and then David Aruk, and then there's assistant engineer Ebenezer, and then the planner and Baggett. They was there, and then including one of my friend called Asa.
This meeting, Karim said, was held on June 12, but on June 14, he heard assembly wanted to withdraw the money without even taking him to the project sites.
Because the job is belong to me, so I don't want problem tomorrow. And then he told me that the following day he will give me the receipt of that demand that they have to take from me, and then they'll send me to the site. The following day they didn't, and I called him on phone and told him that the third party cannot withdraw money more than 5,000 in my account. So I don't want them to go to my accounts again. I don't want them to go to my accounts. And then he told me that if the money has reflect, they will call me and send me to the site before I can't help them. And then okay. So I went to the bank again. The manager wasn't there, but I met the woman. She's the accountant. And I told the woman that there's some money payment from Bongo District Assembly. So I don't want anyone to come to my accounts and draw any money. And then he told me that he's not yet seeing any money like that. But if he sees something, he will call me. So no, but I went and called the manager again and told him that the money, if they pay money to my accounts, I don't want anyone to come and draw the money again.
Despite his protest to the coordinating director and the manager of the bank, the assembly's finance officer and Baba went to the bank to withdraw the 156,000 cedis from his account.
When we went to the bank, I endorsed the back of the check. Then I asked the supervisor and said, oh, we should see the manager before this is finance officer. So he said I should give it to the cashier, but she would talk to the manager. She went in to the manager. So after which, then we picked the money.
Karim said he had got to the bank at 2 p.m. to stop the payment. The board chairman said the money was withdrawn in the morning before Karim's intervention later in the day. Baba, however, told me he and the assembly's finance officer went to the bank close to 3 p.m. to withdraw the money.
It was around 2 something to 3. I can't remember exactly. Yes, around 2 something getting to 3.
I'm surprised that this matter has taken this stage, because somewhere late last year we had opportunity to drill some 20 boreholes. So accordingly we did the advert and people applied. We followed laid down procedure. Procurement procedures were properly adhered to. We awarded contract to 2 people to execute the drilling of the boreholes. So 2 people used the same company to apply, alongside with some other applicants. And 2 companies or 2 people were successful in that bid. So we awarded.
Sorry, who are these 2 people who use the same company to apply?
One is Madame Diana Abunia, and then the other is Insobila. They both used the same company and applied, and both were successful.
And do you also feel or find an anomaly in the fact that you put out an advert for a contract and the 2 separate people you are giving the contracts to, they are coming with the same company? Is this very normal? You already have somebody who's been dealing with you with the same company? At
a point, I even thought that it was the 20 boreholes were going to one person. I told you that towards November, that was the peak of the elections. So I was deeply involved in the campaign, leading the charge of the campaign. It is important for me to have been part of the campaign to ensure that the president is retained. I even thought the 20 boreholes were meant for one company. It was later I realized there were 2 lots. So the 2 could have been given to one company, still within our threshold.
It turned out that Baba did not have the permission of the company he used to apply for the contract. Baba Nsobile Sebastian admitted he did not contact the owner of the company himself.
Ahead of the advert, but as at the time the advert, all my documents wasn't ready. It was expired. The Works and Housing, I couldn't renew it. So I asked the engineer if there's any help. They said, oh, he will talk to Asa and use his contract. So he talked to Asa, and then this is assembly engineer.
The engineer of the assembly?
Yes. So he talked to Asa I asked him if he can talk to Asa to get me his certificate. So he actually talked to Asa, then they used the certificate to award the contract for me.
David Aruk said he contacted a friend of the owner of the company, Asa.
I know the company belongs to Asa, and BA also said he wanted to do work, and that is how I mentioned to Asa that your friend says that he's using your company, and he said yes. So I said, oh, fine.
Asa, however, said he was only contacted after the assembly withdrew the money and Karim got offended and confronted them.
I'm aware about the case. The assembly staff contacted me saying that they use somebody company contract license and awarded contract for themselves. But the problem come in. But they hear that the person is my friend. So I should plead the person for their behalf, which I did. And then the guy also said that he is afraid what will happen to him tomorrow. That's what I know. David Duke. Yeah, he called me and told me these stories, that this is that and that. And then I should, according to their information, they said the guy is my friend. So I should talk to the guy.
In June 2021, Karim's lawyers wrote to the assembly and the bank to formally demand answers.
We wrote to the district chief executive and copied the manager of the bank. And that is the demand notice you are talking about. What we wanted to know was to find out when the contract was awarded to him and how come monies were withdrawn from his business account without his knowledge, without his authorization. Who did pay in the money and how was the money? So we wanted an explanation. We have gotten some explanation from their lawyer. We wrote a letter on it's dated 14th June 2021. Their response came 13th July 2021 from Law Temple, and the lawyer concerned is Mohammed Taido Nambe, my good friend. In his response, he says that what is contained in the demand notice are accurate, but not entirely factual. And that itself is not too clear what he's talking about. If what we are saying is accurate, how it can be factually not entirely correct. Then they go on to say that indeed contracts were awarded to people. I don't know which people he's talking about, because we are talking about a contract purportedly awarded to our client, and for which reason money was paid for him to execute the contract, and the same money was withdrawn by the people who paid in the money. So we wanted an explanation to that regard, but this letter says that contracts were awarded to people who used our client's business certificate to execute the contract, and payments were effected. Now, there's no consent nor authorization whatsoever from our client to whoever the people he's referring to are here. Okay? And that is what we think smacks of fraud, because in any event, I must be the person who should be authorizing the person to whom you are awarding the contract. If I'm not in the loan, then there's fraud here.
Karim and his lawyers doubt the bank used the blank check to withdraw the money. The Bank of Ghana rules do not allow a person to withdraw more than 5,000 cedis from a third-party account. But the board chairman of Maltaba Community Bank said sometimes they relax their rules for their customers. The DCE said this could have been a possibility.
I've heard that a third party might not be able to withdraw beyond over the counter, I think 5,000 or so. But it depends on the relationship between the client and the bank. If they have a very good relationship, they are able to do phone calls, and phone calls should be able to resolve their matters. But that is left with the bank to respond to, because I don't work with the bank.
Sources say the DCE wields some considerable influence in the bank, but he disagrees. The Bongo District Assembly owns 30% shares in that bank, but the DCE in person has some interest in the bank.
Are you a board member of the bank?
Yes, I'm a director of the bank. I became a director 2 clear years before I became a DCE.
You are still a director?
Yes, I'm still a director. I personally have vested interest in that bank because I own shares in that bank.
Fauzia Adamu, the district finance officer of the assembly, who went with Baba to the bank to withdraw the 156,000 cedis, is also a board member of the bank. In the course of the exchanges between Karim, the bank and the assembly, the National Intelligence Bureau, formerly BNI, invited the parties for questioning in Bolgatanga.
Personally, as a DCE, I have not met Karim in discussing this matter until the regional commander for BNI, now NIB, invited me, him, and then the manager, and then the engineer. So we met in his office over this matter, and they said we were going to have heard from both of us, so they were going to put up their report.
My sources in the intelligence agency say the Bongo District Assembly officials admitted they awarded a contract to the management of the assembly, who shared the proceeds from the contract when the job was done. My sources at the bureau said the assembly had relied on David Aruk to seek permission from the owner of the company that was used for the deal, but he failed to do so. I asked Aruk his response to what appeared like wrongdoing on his part, that is, taking money from the account of the contractor without his knowledge or authorization.
Like I'm saying that it's this development that I now know that what I did was not right. But when I got to the bank, my belief and the trust was that I was doing the right thing for BA.
Peter Ayimbisa Ayanga, maintained that the whole brouhaha surrounding the contract and the withdrawal of money was orchestrated by his political detractors to dissuade President Akufo-Addo from maintaining him as the DCE of Bongo. He said the work had been completed and that was the most important thing. I visited at least 3 of the sites and the boreholes had been completed after the withdrawal of the money.
It's not as if the boreholes have not been drilled. My interest as a chief executive is to ensure that Bongo community gets water. The Bongo people get water to drink.
The DCE dismissed claims that the boreholes were only done after the intense confusion relating to the contract. He swore he did not benefit from the deal.
I can tell and swear by your camera and the video you are using that this whole contract, even 1 Ghana cedis, has not come to my pocket. I swear same by my vehicle. Not 1 Ghana cedis has come to my pocket. If somebody got money and bought pito or beer for me, different. But to take part of that process, that project and money, they say, Chief, they take this one. I swear by my car, Lord, steer. As I live here, I shouldn't get home.
It is unclear what powers a video camera or the steering wheel of a vehicle have to be able to ascertain the innocence or guilt of persons. What is clear is that the Bongo District Assembly and the Maltaba Community Bank have more questions to answer to higher authorities. Manasseh Azure Awene, reporting for the 4th Estate.
Let's dig deep into this, and joining me via Zoom for more is Manasseh Azure when he put together this documentary. I'll also be joined by Courage Boti, who is with the data bank, to run us through what really happens in the bank when some of these transactions happen. And later I'll be joined by Dr. Reina Komparija, who is also a lawyer. Let me start with you, Manasseh. Good to have you. First, tell us how you got wind of this matter.
Aisha, I got wind of this matter when I posted on a project that was done in a way that resulted in a problem in the Bongo district, that the assembly had awarded a contract for a temporary dining hall to be made or constructed. And the money wasn't enough, the structure collapsed, and so the contractor was blaming the assembly for it. And we're just lucky that it happened when the students were not eating at the time. Otherwise, there could have been deaths. So it was after I made that post that somebody drew my attention to the fact that the assembly was noted for anomalies in awarded contracts. And then this issue was brought to my attention. And to be frank, when they first narrated it, I felt it was too outrageous to be true, because I didn't understand how it was possible for the assembly to go to a bank, take money from someone's account without their authorization. But when I went into it, it happened to be true.
But how was this possible in the first place, Manasseh?
It appears there was some complicity on the part of the bank, and the assembly willed some interest or influence in the bank. As you know, the assembly is a shareholder of that bank. The district chief executive, Peter Ayimbisa, is a shareholder and also a director of the bank. There is a woman who is the assembly's finance officer. He is also a director of the bank. In fact, she was the one who went with the Baba guy to withdraw the 156,000 cedis on the 14th of June from the contractor's account. So with all of this, one is tempted to believe that the assembly has some interest in the bank and also was able to use its influence to work with officials of the bank to let this happen. Otherwise, I don't think it is ever possible to get into somebody's account and withdraw such huge sums of money beyond 5,000 cedis, even if they had a check from the owner of the account.
Interestingly and thankfully, we have Courage Boti, who is with the data bank. He joins us via Zoom to also tell us what happens in the bank. Courage, I'm grateful that you joined. I need you to paint a picture of what exactly happens with this kind of transactions. I mean, money dropping into an account, the money immediately being transferred into another account, or withdrawn outright without the consent of the account owner. How in God's name can this happen?
Thank you and good evening to your listeners. Typically, when you present a check at the counter, let me just issue a disclaimer that I work with DataBank and I'm not a commercial banker, but I'm aware of what processes goes on in the banking hall. So I'm just sharing my expertise based on what I know. Typically, when you present a check at the counter, I think the first job of the teller is to authenticate the veracity of the check. They would have run it through some UV light to see if it's a clone check or it's an authentic check. They would have gone into their systems to check with the signatories on the counter and whether the signatories on the check match behind the check or on the face of the check. Typically, for a corporate account, the limit on that account per Bank of Ghana regulations will be 5,000 cedis, and the check can either be closed or open check. So if it's a closed check, they would not give you cash on the counter. They would pay it into your account. So, for instance, if you bear Bank A's check and you have an account with Bank B, Bank A will not honor that check if the check is a closed check. They'll ask you to take it to your bank, which will be Bank B, to pay it into your account. But if it's an open check, they won't give you cash more than 5,000 cedis. In fact, the check will not be honored if it's more than 5,000 cedis per the Bank of Ghana regulations. So if a check is honored to whatever tune of money that is being talked about, there is reasonable ground to say that the bank may have played a role in its success.
So when such things happen, who usually should take the first blame, knowing very well, I mean, that the check usually will go through processes before it can be cashed or transferred?
Well, for me as a client of a bank, I have money in my account and I trust that you protect the money. And then the rule is that if a client is withdrawing beyond a certain amount, you need to confirm from, say, the owner of the account. To the extent that the bank hasn't done any of those, of course, they have questions to answer, even to their client. But from the Bank of Ghana's perspective, if indeed they honor the check above 5,000 cedis, which is clearly contrary to the rules, then of course they have questions to answer at the Bank of Ghana also.
Let's look at the provisions of the law, and joining me is Dr. Reina Komparija, who is a lawyer. Doc, thanks so much for your time. Does this fit into a case of misrepresentation, impersonation and fraud? If it does, how does the law dictate that we handle it? All right, so we'll try and get Dr. Komparija to join this conversation because he's key to this discussion. But let me bring you back, Manasseh. Is the police taking an interest in this matter?
Well, since we did this report, we are yet to hear the police or any other person acting. But when I was in Bongo and Bolga, I made a point to visit and interact with some officials at the National Intelligence Bureau, because the parties mentioned that the National Intelligence Bureau, which used to be the BNI, got wind of the matter and invited all of them to Bolgatanga to have a discussion. And my sources within the NIB told me that a report was prepared and then submitted to Accra. What I know from their operations is that they, at the regional level, they would have to send a report to the national level. It was at the NIB that I realized, or their sources told me, that the officials of the assembly actually admitted using somebody's company to award a contract to officials of the assembly, and whatever proceeds that came out of that deal were shared among members of the management of the Bongo District Assembly. So I suppose that at the level of the NIB, they should be handling this, but that was done long before I went to Bolga, so I don't know to what extent they are taking this matter up. I heard somewhere that a group within the region was planning to petition SHRAD and also the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
Thankfully, Dr. Komparija is back on the line. Doc, earlier I was asking if this fits into misrepresentation or impersonation or even fraud. If it does, then what does the law dictate that we do or handle this kind of issue?
Yeah, so Aisha, thank you. Thank you to your listeners and your viewers. This is quite a minefield, isn't it? And to the extent that you have a collusion between the assembly officials and management of the assembly on the one hand, and you have the active participation of a private citizen on the other hand, and they have consummated an idea. You know, the whole essence of criminal law is the intent. So from the word go, this was, to all intents and purposes, a criminal enterprise by the actors of the assembly as well as the private individuals and also some officials of the bank. And so at every level of the engagement, at every level of this whole messy situation, there's the element of crime. And so if you want to start from the fact that the assembly is in that unhealthy relationship between a private contractor have intended to, if you like, misrepresent on the one hand, as pursuing a legitimate business and to sidestep the law, the processes, and the procurement processes that would, because I would think that this first of all also flouts against the procurement rules, because the contract term would dictate that there's an involvement of due process of invitation to the public. Did they do that? They didn't do that. So they would have fouled the procurement processes and the Procurement Act. Now, the intent to, so you also have to question value for money. So what did they occasion? Did they occasion some loss of revenue or some loss of income to the disassembly? That is also something that under Act 29 of the Criminal and Other Offences Act 1960, we would find. Even so, the consummation of the agreement itself, because that forms the foundation for every element, all the pieces of the interactions up to the point of withdrawing the money from the bank also constitutes a criminal activity. And I'm sure that the involvement of the state prosecutors and the Attorney General's office, the Special Prosecutor's office, and all agencies of state that are responsible for prosecuting criminal elements would pursue it. There's fraud, there's misrepresentation, there's impersonation, there is flouting of the rules of procurement processes. You can find about 5 to 6 criminal elements, and I'm sure that if the will and determination is there to get to the bottom of this matter, there has to be some prosecution at the end of the day.
Doc, is it possible for such a thing to happen without any insight? I'm talking about the bank. Isn't this a breach of the banking regulation?
Yes, so first of all, what has happened at the bank is also very telling, because first of all, the bank as an institution relates to its customers on a one-on-one basis. Okay, so that account holder is the only person, as the bankers have explained already, that account holder is the only person that can legitimately transact business in the nature of withdrawal. Okay, so if the bank did not honor that, because it's a contract between that individual and the bank as an institution to make sure that his deposit and his money is safe within their custody, because that's the primary and fundamental duty of a bank, is to ensure the safety of all deposits in individual accounts. There's something we usually call the know your client rules. Okay, know your client rules, KCR or something, that the bank at the point of taking on board a customer would know who is this individual, what business is he involved in, what is the purpose of the account. So even by the Banking Act, and you know we now have the Money Laundering Act that also precludes some of these activities, because individuals set up accounts purposely for criminal enterprises and criminal activities, and this may be one of them. And we need to know deeper than we're seeing now. Is this the first time that the Assembly is engaged in this? Now, officers of the bank, is this the very first time? What other contracts were awarded, for instance, in the past that have similar characteristics as we are looking at this now? And this is a poor district. I'm from the district. This is a very poor district, and we know that resources do not flow very well to some of these areas. And the little that we have, this is what is being channeled to through a very grandiose scheme of corruption. And like I said, the banking officials who are colluding and who are colluded will also have to answer. They have flouted the banking regulations. I'm sure it's a community bank, and because it's a community bank, the FS Bank would have supervisory responsibility and in ensuring that they apprehend. I think by now we should have had arrests and pending investigations, arrests, suspensions, depending on the level that the crime is committed. We should have had arrests. We should have had suspension. The president should have. It's not enough not to really nominate a district chief executive as a district, but he is actively perpetuating a crime. The president is aware of that. And so at the level of political decision, I think that the district chief executive would have to, beyond the law, we need to see also political action at the presidential level as well.
So what kind of sanctions are they going to be facing per the law?
So ordinarily speaking, there's stealing. Okay. Now, what has happened between the assembly members and the bank, that is stealing, because then they are appropriating money that does not belong to them. So that is stealing. Clearly, I think that's under Section 46 of the Criminal and Other Offences Act. So that is stealing. And so when you are found culpable or guilty of the offense of stealing, you are in prison, isn't it? Upwards of 10 years, you are in prison. So that clearly is mandated by law, it's mandated by a criminal code. And so there would be that prosecution that will end in that. Then causing financial loss to the state under sections, I think 170A amended of the Criminal Offences Act, they will also have to answer if indeed their action has occasioned some financial loss to the assembly and to the state for that matter. That will be another offense. You remember the cases of the two versus Attorney General and the state versus Attorney Chachuchikata and the Kwame Pepper, and all of those cases. That's precedent that we could have some sort of prosecution and then imprisonment. Now, the law allows for some sort of, if you like, allows high-level crime. I don't know if this one qualifies for high-level crime for the perpetrators of the crime to make some payments to the state in lieu of some prosecution or in lieu of some sentencing. That's also available. Now, the bank itself will have to also pay some taxes. Will their license be revoked or having not complied with the requirements of the law in their establishment? So the instrument that established the bank, that has put the bank, in fact, it looks very murky, and they put the only rural bank in the constitution.
All right, so Dr. Rena Kumparija there, who is a lawyer, he's been outlining some sanctions that the people involved in this could be facing. Manasseh, if you're still there, wrap it up for me. Has any of you, yourself, have you lodged any complaint, or the company owner, have you launched any complaints with the police?
For now, no. The Fourth Estate is still watching things as they unfold. And if any such thing is going to be done, it will be done at the institutional level.
All right, I'm grateful that you all joined me. Manasseh Azori-Awuni is the one who put together this expose, and this has just begun. It is something that we are going to be following through to end, and will bring you viewers updates on all of this. Courage Boti is with Data Bank. I'm grateful that you joined us for this conversation.